My mother is more worried about me, less about me not being a doctor, more about, will Trump come after you? Is people threatening you? Tomorrow I told my mom I'm becoming an accountant. She would be delighted.
I think I know where it comes from. Because they look at professions like lawyers, accountants, and doctors as useful professions.
I think you're right, 100%. But I think what's changed in recent years is that attitude is changing amongst brown folks.
Yeah.
I think they recognize the value of what you're doing and what I'm doing. I think when something like Gaza happens, October the 7th happens, obviously go back 20 years, 9/11. I think people belatedly in our community realize we didn't have anyone on the screen. We didn't have anyone in the arts. We didn't have anyone in Hollywood. We didn't have anyone on the nightly news.
No, I think it changed because they see you making money.
I'm Mehdi Hasan.
And I'm Bassem Youssef.
And we're Not Kidding, which is a brand new, very special podcast from Zeteo in which I get to sit down with hilarious people around the world, talk about serious stuff with funny people.
So we're actually kidding.
I mean, we'll talk about some funny stuff too, Bassem, I promise.
Maybe. I'm already confused.
No, it's not confusing. It's called We're Not Kidding. It's serious stuff. We're going to talk about Gaza today. We're going to talk about the media's coverage of Gaza. We're going to talk about whether Bassem and I should have been doctors or not.
So we're kidding or not? You lost me.
Well, let's find out.
First of all, you're confusing me because I didn't recognize you without the tie and the suit.
Because I'm wearing a hoodie.
Are you trying to be on TikTok?
Bassem,
what is this?
I'm on TikTok. Everyone can check me out on TikTok. Listen,
how many followers?
This is why I had to leave 500,000 followers behind with MSNBC. They wouldn't let me take the TikTok account. Very painful. It cried myself to sleep.
Oh my God, MSNBC took your TikTok
followers.
They
took my TikTok
that
followers.
That is even worse than firing you.
They did not fire me. They cancelled my shows and I quit.
So they didn't. Wait.
Oh, we're already into
semantics.
This. We're already into
semantics.
This. All right.
So they
no,
didn't.
It's not semantics.
So they didn't fire you, but they cancelled you.
No. It's important.
We don't kill civilians, but they are.
Let's be very clear before we get going. They cancelled my shows.
Okay.
And they said, stay. We'll pay you your salary. You can be a guest anchor. You can be an on-air analyst. And I said, no, I'd rather go do my own thing and say my own piece.
Wait, so they would.
So I could have stayed.
They would still pay you.
Still pay me. I'd have a great
life. But they
life.
will mute you, basically.
They will give me less time on air. And you know me, Bassem, I have a big mouth.
But the same pay.
Same pay. And I said no because you know me, I've got stuff to say.
I would have taken the deal.
My mother told me to take the deal.
Yes, it's money.
Spend more time with the kids.
Yes.
Bassem,
pay your mortgage.
But here I am with you. Because I left, I get to sit here with you and I get to do this podcast and wear a hoodie. And the reason I wanted to do this podcast, Bassem, is because people think I'm serious. I'm always in a suit and tie. I'm always grilling people like Mark Regev.
And you're already wearing a hoodie. It's like, hey, I'm the cool version of Mehdi Hasan.
Yes, this is the suit. This is the suit and tie-less Mehdi Hasan. Because I'll tell you what, I wrote a book called Win Every Argument. You may have seen it. Yeah. And in that book, I point out that I have what's called RAMF. Resting angry Muslim face.
Oh, you do?
I do. Anytime I'm serious, it just looks like I'm angry.
Yeah.
When I moved to DC about 10 years ago, I made new friends and met new people, and they all said, wow, you're actually not angry in real life. You're not intimidating. You're actually, you have a life. You have a personality. You have a sense of humor. So I thought, why not do a podcast where people get to see me not grilling people?
And now you only have a resting bitch face.
Thanks, Bassem. Thank you very much as we set the tone for this very new podcast. We're not kidding, or maybe we are kidding. Maybe Bassem's not kidding. I'm just going to remind everyone at home, people think I'm really angry, so that's why I wanted to do this podcast, to have some fun, find the funniest person I know to do a show with. Bassem Youssef wasn't free, Bassem, so thank you very much for stepping in. I'm kidding. I love you, Bassem. You know I love you.
Well, actually, like it hurt because it's true. Because Rami is much funnier than me.
I've actually come to see your stand-up, as you know, and you are hilarious. If you haven't been to Bassem's show, he's on a global tour right now. Please do check it out. But we've not known each other that long. Yeah. I saw you, I've known of you for a long time, but I didn't know you as in personally until the night of Piers Morgan, when you broke the internet.
Well, I have a confession. I've known of you and I have refused to be on your show and be interviewed by you before because I was very intimidated by you. I did.
There you go.
I did.
Everyone's
I was
bloody
like
intimidated by
after yeah, I know that's why you need that podcast to
That's why I need the podcast. I need you, I need the hoodie.
to improve your image.
I need the cream hoodie.
Because you're an angry
I need the
Muslim man
smile.
and I'm scared of you. you need more.
No,
Yeah,
I was look, Bassem.
more hoodies.
Let the mutual flattery
Less
continue.
ties.
Let the mutual flattery continue. I was very honored to find out, mutual friend of ours, Ayman Mohyuddin, my former colleague at MSNBC, the night of Piers Morgan, you break the internet. And I said, I've been watching you for a while. I need to speak to this guy. This guy has just knocked it out of the park. And I said, Ayman, do you know Bassem? And he said, yes. And he connected us. And I think he sent you my number and you rang me that night.
Yeah.
And we chatted about
And remember
that
what I
interview.
told you? I told you I need support. I need help.
And turns out you didn't, because since that night, you've taken over the world. You've gone on, I think, 766 interviews since then, something like that. You seem to be everywhere.
But here's the thing. A lot of people talk about that first Piers interview, but afterwards, I couldn't continue doing the same style because dark humor and satire can just goes for a little bit. Because after that, you need to be armed with knowledge.
Yes.
And I didn't have that. Before that, I had the same average knowledge of an average Arab person about what's happening in Palestine. And that I cannot stand in a regular interview with people with knowledge. So I had to educate myself. And a huge part of my education was actually watching your interviews and your debates, because I didn't know much about the conflict. I have to say, because yes, we know that there's injustice, there's the land stolen, but the stuff that the pro-Israeli side throws at you, if you're not prepared and you're not knowledgeable, you can easily fall into it. You can fall flat in your face in a debate because you don't know the information.
So it's interesting you say that, because I've spent my life reading about this stuff. I've been passionate about this subject for a long time, and it's something that's interested me, and then professionally something I've covered as a journalist. You're saying you had to kind of educate yourself.
Yeah.
Give us a sense of how you did that, because I'm fascinated. Because on Piers Morgan, that first interview, you use your dark humor,
and the logic,
and logic, and and satiric. Yeah, you said, what about the West Bank?
What about the West Bank?
That was the great mic drop for Piers. But then he does another interview with you in LA, and it's a very long interview, and you are well prepared. And I watched that with my wife, thinking, wow, this guy knows his stuff, because you're quoting things a lot of people don't know. And since then, you've been doing that a lot. I watched you with Chris Cuomo, Bassem, and you said, he talked about river to the sea, this phrase that's on placards on college campuses, which is now seen as an anti-Semitic phrase, a hate-filled phrase, a genocidal phrase. And you pointed out that river to the sea is in the Likud Party charter from, I think, 1977.
And I recited it for him.
You recited it for him?
Yeah.
I watched that. So how did you recite it for him?
So,
what did you do? You memorized the Likud charter. Some people memorize the Quran.
No,
Bassem memorizes the Likud Party charter.
I just
Mashallah.
I memorized the 5 lines that I need to know to appear as if I'm smart.
So now I'm going to drill down. When did you memorize it? Night before?
No.
Minutes before the interview?
No. So this goes, actually, there was a gap between the first Piers interview and and there was exactly 2 weeks. And when I went into the first Piers interview, I didn't know what to do other than I needed to make an impact and a splash. So I went there with all of the sound bites and the stuff that would stay with people, like Israel is a narcissistic psychopath, Israel is like Homelander, not Superman. And my goal is to make a huge splash in order to force him to sit with me one-on-one. But I didn't have a plan what to do on the one-on-one, because when there's something that people don't know. When Piers came to me in Los Angeles, he told me, I was surprised and I didn't know what to do. I didn't expect that. So he came to the second interview thinking that I would be doing the same style. But I surprised him again with like a kind of decent knowledge about the issue. And I'll tell you how I did that. After the first interview, I called all my friends, like, I don't know what I'm going to do in the second interview. I don't have knowledge. Maybe it's a couple of zingers, a couple of sound bites, but I don't know how to continue.
You did a 2-week crash course.
Yes, absolutely. So this is what happened. Friends and friends of friends of friends connected me with people. And then suddenly I worked with a team that comprised of about 12 people all around the world. In Washington, New York, Germany, inside the Knesset, in Israel. People have family in the West Bank, people have family in Gaza, people living in the West Bank. And I made like kind of like a network of historians and academics and people there, and even Knesset members. And I had people putting me on Zoom calls for hours, and I was just like writing, and I was just like asking about this. So I got and as you said, it was a crash course.
So I want to come back and talk more detail about Gaza and what you've been up to. But when you're describing this to me, I do want to take a step back. You are a doctor by training.
Yeah.
You practiced, I think, for over a decade as a cardiothoracic surgeon in Egypt.
Yes.
That takes a lot of skill, ability, and memory.
Memorization.
And I'm just trying to picture you studying on Gaza.
Yes.
Is that how you studied for a medical degree?
I had stick notes, and I had
So a young beardless Bassem in Cairo is under the lamp, under the studying away.
I am studying. Is
that how you've always been, a nerd?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, because I wasn't good with girls, so I had to.
So before you got the guns,
yes,
you were a nerd.
Yes.
I'm just wondering the order of events. Did the biceps come first, or did the brains and the?
Okay, you want to know something personal about me?
Okay, maybe. I'm not sure if I do, but go on.
When I went to middle school, I come from a middle-class family. My dad was a judge and my mom was a university professor. And they put me in a school that was still opening. It was this new wave of international schools in Egypt. At that time, that was one of the most expensive schools, 5,000 Egyptian pounds. That's like $1,300 a year. That was a huge thing in 1986. Yes. I go in with the richest people in Cairo, in Egypt. And I didn't come from money, so I wasn't one of the cool kids. So all I did was playing sports and being a nerd. So I did all of the school teams, and I was a nerd. So all of my life, I was just, I think I went even to medical school because in my mind, I didn't want to have that much of a free time because I didn't know what to do with the free time because I didn't have the luxury to go out. So I said, like, all right. So when people say, like, go out, like, I'm busy, I'm studying. So this is how I got into medicine. And actually, I used that in studying in a crash course for 2 weeks for the second interview because, you know, everything that we say would be, every slip up.
Yes.
It's going to be magnified.
Piers Morgan, if he watches this, will be so happy that you treated him like medical school. Basically.
I did. You know, actually, I texted him. I texted him after the second interview. I told him, thank you, Piers, for making me push myself to be on the level where I can actually be in that room with you. I have to be, I'm actually very appreciative of him.
It's funny because you said your parents are a judge and a
university professor.
University professor. And they must be very proud that you became a doctor before obviously not finishing, not continuing. My team and I, we had a long discussion. I think I messaged you about title. What do we call this podcast? I was WhatsApping you as well. And one of the names we had was We Should Have Been Doctors. Because I thought we have a bunch of culture. We have a bunch of brown people who go into arts, media, politics, news. That's the kind of guests, comedy, Hollywood. We've got a bunch of great guest hosts coming. A lot of us, our parents wanted us to be doctors, and you actually did it. I didn't. My mother's a doctor. My father's an engineer. Asian cliche.
So did you actually go into?
Neither me nor my sibling are doctors. We're both journalists.
Not even pre-med?
No, not even. I didn't even do science all the way till the end of high school.
How did they react to that? Then seriously, were they disappointed or were they proud of you?
I think my mother will always be a little bit disappointed.
Yeah.
My father was actually very supportive of me going into journalism. My mother is more worried about me, less about me not being a doctor, more about, will Trump come after you? Is people threatening you? Tomorrow I told my mom I'm becoming an accountant, she would be delighted.
Yeah, or a lawyer.
Or a lawyer. She said exactly. She goes, you know how to argue, why can't you be a lawyer?
I think I know where it comes from. Because they look at professions like lawyers, accountants, and doctors as useful professions. You're actually doing something. If someone comes with their taxes, you fix it for them. Someone comes with a case, you fix them. Someone comes with like a broken body, you fix them for them. But a news anchor, what are you actually doing? A comedian, what are you doing? You see?
So I think you're right, 100%. But I think what's changed in recent years is that attitude is changing amongst brown folks. Yeah. I think they recognize the value of what you're doing and what I'm doing. I think when something like Gaza happens, October the 7th happens, obviously go back 20 years, 9/11. I think people belatedly in our community realize we didn't have anyone on screen. We didn't have anyone in the arts. We didn't have anyone in Hollywood. We didn't have anyone on the nightly news. And I think that is slowly, I do a lot of travel like you do. You travel for stand-up. I travel. I've done a lot of promotions for Zeteo, a lot of speeches to brown crowds. I do see the change now. Before, people would be like, what is this? Now they're like, how does my kid do what you do?
No, I think it changed because they see you making money.
Maybe
It's all about money.
Seeing you make money, I think, Bassem. Seeing
Well,
you
you're
make
not making money. I mean, that's a very expensive hoodie.
Did we not discuss the fact that I quit MSNBC in a really good salary to set up my own company and take a big risk in the open market?
The sacrifice.
No,
the
it's
sacrifice,
not,
Mehdi.
it's not a money thing. I genuinely think.
No,
Look,
but
okay, let me ask you
no,
seriously.
wait.
Go on.
I want to ask about
Go on.
MSNBC.
Go on.
What actually happened? What did happen?
What happened is they cancelled my shows.
Yes.
They didn't tell me why they cancelled my shows.
Mm-hmm.
I asked. I never got an explanation. And then they said, well, we're happy for you to stay on. Nothing personal. Please stay on, be a guest anchor, be a guest analyst. And other people would have taken that deal. For me, this is 2024. There's a genocide in Gaza. There's an election coming up where a fascist is running for office. There's no way I could not be on air or doing my thing or saying my piece all the time. And if it means go set up my own thing, which is what I've done, then that's what had to be done. Now, people argue over what happened, why. You have to ask, Piers Morgan asked me this question, what you asked me. And I said, you have to ask MSNBC. I can't tell you what they said. But of course, you and I have both been in those situations, right? You had Superman.
Yeah.
People keep asking you, what happened? Did you get dropped from Superman because of what you said on Piers Morgan?
So far, you see, the same way...
James Gunn says no.
The same way that's so murky with MSNBC, it was murky with Superman. First of all, I love James Gunn. And I don't want to... I didn't go far with this because I respect the guy. And he was very nice personally on the phone. What happened is that they sent me an audition as I was flying to Dubai. I had an event there. And I did the audition, put it there. It's like, I never get auditions. You know, there's like a million people doing they're going to audition for this role. I'm not going to get it. An hour later, my agent called me. James Gunn loves it. He wants to interview you. It's like, once you land in Dubai, you need to have this interview with him because the SAG-AFTRA strike is going to start. So you cannot have any conversation with any directors or actors. So I went there. He loved my audition. It's like, we have you, and he told me about the plot of the movie, and he told me about like who's on the movie. It's like, I'd like to talk to the people that I choose so we know that we have good chemistry. It was great. It's like, in the business of acting, that means you got the role. 4 months goes by, October 7th happened, all of that, the strike's still going on. I go to Australia, my agent called me, it's like, the strike is over. We called them, said they dropped you because they changed the script. Of course, I was sad for like 3 days. And then I just like put it behind me. And then I was asked I went on Chris Como. I didn't discuss it. After the interview with Chris Como asked me off camera. He said like, did you have any backlash in Hollywood? So I told him. And now I remember when I was telling him, I still had some anger and bitterness inside of me. It's like I was angry that I was dropped. And then I said like, why am I angry? I'm doing great. Maybe I was dropped by the establishment. But I was chosen by the people because my work is, I have no middleman. I go, people pay tickets and come to I don't need a middleman. I don't need a studio. I don't need an executive to say that I can get a job. So it's like, I said, I have no anger about this. I put out a video and I kind of exonerated James Gunn because first of all, I respect him. I like him. And second of all, I didn't want to be famous for the wrong reasons.
Yes.
I didn't want to go along.
Don't worry, Bassem. There's one thing we can say about you. You are certainly not famous for the wrong reasons.
No, but like you don't want to victimize yourself. You know, like other people do.
And also, let me just tell everyone at home, Bassem's a brilliant actor. I watched Lioness.
Did you see me?
I did see you.
Did you see me getting whacked?
I saw you getting killed in your underwear in the kitchen while serving ice cream.
Yes.
You're the big terrorist baddie.
Yes.
You did play a terrorist.
I did. I mean, hey, the money was good. The money.
I'm glad you decided to do a very different role from the roles our people take.
Yes, but hey, I was a very charming terrorist.
I swear to God, I didn't realize it was you.
Yeah.
Until after. Bassem Youssef.
Yeah.
That was Bassem.
I was giving her.
You did it. That's the power of your acting. Turned into someone else. Yes. You turned into a charming ice cream eating jihadist. It's very nicely done, and then got whacked. Okay, let's talk something important. You said
that was not important.
No, you said you are now. You want the people. You used the phrase "the people," and I do want to talk. And you also mentioned our parents think that the jobs we do are not useful jobs.
Yeah.
So post October 7th, I think most people would agree that okay, you're not a cardiothoracic surgeon saving lives in a hospital in Cairo or in America somewhere because you passed the American exams. I know before you switched. But you are saving lives in a broader sense, in the sense that you're speaking up for what's happening in Gaza, where tens of thousands of people are losing their lives, hundreds of thousands of people have been maimed or injured, more than 1 million people displaced from their homes. You have almost, in many ways, become the face of the Gazan, I don't know what to call it, messaging campaign. There isn't one. Unfortunately, the Palestinians don't have one. But you have basically stepped into the void of what should have been a Palestinian messaging campaign. You're not Palestinian yourself. I know your wife hails from Gaza. How much value do you think that's brought? Because I think there's a value to what we do, especially what you do.
It's very difficult to talk about what kind of work you do, because it's difficult. It's difficult to talk about. But I can see the difference when people share the clips and the videos that I'm part of, and I think the difference is that there's a lot of people out there who are very valuable, much more knowledgeable than me, much more, even if They know the stuff more. They have been in this conflict, talking about this conflict for years and years and years. But what I'm trying to do is to discuss that conflict in sound bites, smaller videos, because this is the language of the new generation.
Yes,
that's why it goes longer. Because I don't know if you notice or not, I don't just go on interviews. I go to the interviews and I know exactly what points I'm going to discuss.
Yes, clearly.
And then I go back to my team and I said, when I say this, I want you to bring that video to support what I'm saying. When I say this, I plan my interviews right before I go in. And knowing my team, I said, I want you to prepare that material because I'm going to discuss this and this and this and this and this, and I want you to support me with this and this.
If I was writing my book today and not in 2022, I would talk about you in the book, because you're doing exactly what every debater, every interviewee, every communication you're doing. You're preparing, you're practicing, you have a strategy, you bring receipts, all the things that I'm obsessed with. But what's interesting is you are a comedian, and yet Christian Amanpour, Chris Cuomo, Piers Morgan, they all want you on. You went to India, Bassem. You went to the India Today conclave, which is a big effing deal in India. Yeah. Politicians, commentators, and you turn up and F Churchill and are talking about Gaza to the great and the good of India. That doesn't just happen to everyone. As you say, there are professors out there who know more than you and I do about all of this stuff. But you're getting that platform and you're using it wisely. There were years ago, I would have seen someone like you go on, I'd have cringed and said, oh, well, we don't need that celebrity saying whatever nonsense. But you're not doing that. And I think that's important, because right now, the media assault is so relentless that unless people like us are willing to call out some of our peers with the platforms we have, there'll never be any change. And I think it's fair to say October 7th showed us not just what the Israelis are capable of, but what Western media is capable of in terms of covering up what the Israelis are doing.
Yes, and calling the Western media in a way that this is what satire does. It puts a mirror in front of everybody. It's like, you said that. This is like one of the moments is when a lot of people ask me, what should have Israel done? It's exactly what they're doing. Let's kill more people. Because it's called kill, and they expect us to kill a little less. Kill a little bit, be merciful. It's but Hamas. So we said, kill, kill more. No, don't kill 1,000, kill 10,000. So then it's wait.
You've got to throw them off the game, right? So when I did Piers Morgan, his opening question I thought would be, will you condemn Hamas? It wasn't. His opening question was, if you were Prime Minister of Israel, what would you have done? And I said, I would have resigned. He didn't expect, because he thought we were going to talk about the strategy, military, who to kill, and I would have resigned. And I think you're right. I think destabilizing some of these people, they're not used to having pushback. They're not used to having people. They're used to, and I'm not speaking specifically about Piers Morgan, but in general, I think Western interviewers talking about Israel-Palestine over decades have been used to being able to browbeat the brown guy into submission.
I'll give you a perfect example that happened in an interview a few days ago. It just started on this. If this was Britain and October 7th happened, how would you think that we should have responded? So I said, you're resetting the clock from October 7th. You don't talk about October 7th. You're talking to me as if there was a ceasefire on October 6th. And then I used your video the video that you've introduced, Zeteo, about like 2 weeks before October 7th, there were like Israel bombed Gaza for 3 days straight. There were 234 Palestinians killed in the West Bank. They're talking about hostages, 5,000
So you've immediately switched the narrative.
Yeah. So he comes back, but what should have done? So here's the thing: they repeat the question, hoping that you would give them a different answer. So I stood this is what I and I'm sure that you are a much better debater than me, and I'm sure that you already know this technique, but since I'm new to this, I'm kind of getting to know these techniques. They want to push you back. If you stand your ground long enough, you know what they will do? Okay, so let's meet halfway. Well, there's two sides. So I said, no, there's no two sides. One of them is a nuclear power, and one of them is a military. So then you push them back. It's really about, they want to either blackmail you, intimidate you, put you down, try to get a different answer. If you really stand your ground, they have no choice but actually not just to come back in the middle, but even to go push back in their side.
Do you think a difference is being made this time around?
Yes, I think it is. Because one of the biggest differences, Mehdi, is this whole thing about anti-Semitic thing. You're anti-Semitic. It doesn't faze people anymore. It doesn't scare people anymore. It's actually became one of the most laughable accusations. Anti-Semitic. You know, when you use...
When Chuck Schumer is accused of being anti-Semitic, the most senior Jewish member of the United States government, hardcore supporter of Israel, when you use that on Chuck Schumer, it loses all value. And, you know, can I just add something here? I actually am not happy about anti-Semitism losing value, because anti-Semitism is horrible. It's a real problem in our society. It's actually on the rise in the United States of America, where we live. And the problem is, if you throw it willy-nilly everywhere, if you throw it at every Israel, then when the real anti-Semites are marching, Jews will not replace us. When they're marching in the street, when they're attacking synagogues, unfortunately, it won't have the same value because it's been used on Chuck Schumer. It's being used on Palestinians. So let me ask the big question that's hanging over all of this. Why do you care?
Honestly, I didn't care before October 7th. I mean, or didn't care. I thought that this, like, the Palestine-Israeli conflict is a chronic conflict, and it's never going to happen, because even the Arab states are not even like supporting Palestine. They're all, most of them are complicit. There's no point. But after October 7th, and when I started to educate myself, as I told you, my knowledge was below average. And I said, like, how is this happening? This is beyond human. And you know, some of the things that's happening, people don't talk about. Like, we talk about humans, but we don't talk about land. There's two things I want to talk about: environment and agriculture. Right now, because of what's happening in Gaza, the environment in Gaza is, I think one of the things that Israel is trying to do is making Gaza totally uninhabitable by humans. There is so much asbestos and so much heavy metals, and you can see that the air on Gaza is different. The way that they have, like, they bombed in, like, the amount of bombs they bombed in 6 days more than America bombed in 1 year on, I think, on Iraq. Iraq. It's crazy. So all of that bombs and all of that nitrate and all of that white phosphorus and all of that actually, Gaza now is really unlivable. It makes it impossible for people to come back. But before that, remember how Israel is promoting itself all around the world as, like, they're making the desert bloom, we have the best. They don't tell you that they use the Palestinian land as a dumping ground. All of the sewage, all of this, they dump it into the Palestinians. Palestinians are not allowed to have any agricultural land outside of Area C, which is the most fertile in all of the West Bank. Palestinians are not allowed to dig for wells. They're not allowed to dig to expand their wells. They're not allowed, even if they would put rain cisterns to collect rainwater, it's being removed by the occupation. Not even allowed to collect rainwater. And there is, like, a very interesting story. Have you ever heard about the only Palestinian mushroom farm?
No.
It's called the Amoro Mushroom Farm. It was 10 years ago. There was no mushrooms other than Israeli mushrooms. It was the white-capped mushroom. It's edible. It's not that kind of mushroom.
It's not that kind of mushroom. Let's just clarify.
It's good white-capped mushroom. And there was no Palestinian, only Israeli mushrooms. And then a group of Palestinians, and they were actually tech engineers. They didn't know anything of farm. They taught themselves how to farm. They had to revive ancient methods to collect water and to agriculture. And they started to actually do this mushroom farms. And they from one farm, they had more than 30 or 40% of the market. So what did the Israelis do? They started to hold their spore shipments from the Netherlands, the one that they used to plant them, in their ports in the Ashdod port, and they would put them for month and month and month and month, crippling the business. So there's a ways of occupation other than there's the brutality, there's the killing, there's the taking of the land, but there's other ways. They are destroying the land. They are removing any kind of hope for those people to be in the land. Do you know, of course, about the black goat?
No.
The black goats is indigenous for Palestinian land, and it is just like made for this kind of environment. And in 1950s, they banned black goats. And then a few years ago, if you remember, there was like huge wildfires in Palestine because those white goats are not equipped to eat the dry leaves. So they started to, okay, we can allow you to have black goat again. They, as a matter of fact, they had to prevent Palestinians to get za'atar, to collect za'atar. It's wild, and they started to actually to have people that have za'atar, to give them more fines. So all of these little, not even microaggressions, these are macroaggressions. They are actually making Palestinians' life unlivable in this place. We don't talk about that because there's so much killing and so much atrocities. We even don't talk about what they do in the land.
You're right. In any other conflict, we would be focusing on that. But as you say, it's kind of list item number 17.
Maybe if
on
you
the
talk
list
to
of
the West
atrocities.
about the environment, maybe they would listen.
No, because look what's happened. Look what's happened to Greta Thunberg when she's spoken out in Palestine. Suddenly, nobody supports her climate change activism. I just want to circle back. We talked about the media. You said you think things are changing. What was your reaction when you saw Rami Youssef, our friend, on SNL, talk about the freedom of the Palestinian people and the crowd cheering, applauding, I think 7 seconds straight? That was a moment on SNL there in the middle of New York, was it not? This
shows you that there's a huge separation, disconnect between the people and the media and the political elite. And it starts like sounding as if you're reading 1984. What the speakers are telling you, but what the people actually think. It doesn't matter what you think. We are with Israel. How is it? But people in this, like, this is wrong. It's like, no, we should continue that. That is every time you see marches in the thousands and the hundreds of thousands, and then you see the media, that as if they are completely disconnected. They want to tell you, as long as we tell you this is true, you have to believe that. This 7 seconds applause. People coming to Congress, people say, how the hell you're doing? This is a complete disconnect. How is this a democracy if your representatives don't even empathize by when you have someone like, what's his name, the guy who lost his legs?
Brian Mast.
Brian Mast. When he said like
wore IDF uniform.
He didn't just wear IDF uniform. He said like there's no Palestinian innocent kids. They should and there would be more of them should be destroyed. That kind of vitriol.
But who did they censor in Congress? The Palestinian woman.
Rashida Tlaib. By the way, what Rami did was actually brilliant because he said, my friend called me and he said, please pray for my dog.
Yes, genius.
And then he said, I pray for the Palestinian, I pray for the hostages, and please God, please help the dog. So it's just like because Americans will maybe react for a dog's pain more than Palestinians, which is very brilliant, but very, very painful.
He's painful and he's a comedic genius. Okay, so people expect Rami to do that. People expect you to take on Piers Morgan. People hear me on MSNBC when I was on there, or Ayman Mohyeldin, and would say, okay, look, the brown Muslim folks are speaking up. What about when the white liberals do speak up? And I'm thinking of old friend of yours, Jon Stewart, on The Daily Show, back on The Daily Show, doing a lot of coverage of this conflict. John Oliver did a brilliant monologue right at the start. I think he was one of the first to kind of break the dam post-October 7th. How do you interpret what they are doing?
So John Oliver did a good piece, but even in that piece, and I understand it was 4 months ago, it has to be said about like, oh, but Hamas didn't accept any kind of peace and they went and killing. And so, okay, we have to accept that. Jon Stewart, since 2009, and when he did these pieces about Israel, he was always been someone who would go outside of the path that is drawn for everybody else. But maybe the last piece that he did about Gaza, I mean, it left me wanting. I mean, I appreciate him going, but and he started the piece very strong about talking about like us Americans giving the arms of Israel and how like we should stop that. But then the rest of it started to dilute the guilt to involve everybody. And then it started about like the Arab nations, and it started about the UN being dysfunctional, about the Security Council, and we all know that all of these don't matter. It's really
right
about,
now, none of them matter. I mean, I agree; they all have blame to take.
Yes, of course.
But right now, they're not the ones killing 32,000 people.
But you don't. But like you don't. Like it's really about America and Israel, nothing else. The UN is by design is made dysfunctional. When you tell me about like Russia and China in the Security Council, it's laughable. About like, oh, the Arab wars are not your support. It's like, you know that all of these people are in the back pockets of the United States, and it's really up to Israel, to America, to tell Israel to stop. And it's what really pains me is that just a few days ago, only Biden, all what he did is just like called Netanyahu. Yeah. And everybody's like, Biden has betrayed the Jewish people. It's like, what? It's like, what did you tell me? It's like, I just told them to keep doing what they're doing.
No, I wrote a piece for The Guardian last month where I said he can end the war with a phone call like Ronald Reagan did in 1982. And people said, oh, you're being simplistic. It's not that easy. Guess what? He made a phone call to Netanyahu. Netanyahu opened up 20 bakeries, opened up a water line, increased humanitarian aid. We were told by all the Israeli spokespersons, there's no blockage on aid. Then how come you're suddenly increasing the aid when you're told to by Joe Biden? So yes, I agree with you. I think all of our journalists, all of our late night show hosts do need to focus on America rather than distractions.
But also they need to focus about the sellouts. Like when Joe Biden calls Netanyahu, the next day Lindsey Graham flies to Israel, just like I'm here to standing with Benjamin Netanyahu.
The Republicans are making Israel into a wedge issue, right? They see this as a partisan issue.
But see what happened just the last week. Lindsey Graham gets on a plane, goes to Netanyahu, kind of like to lick his boots, and then Britain says like we might stop the arms, and then Suella Braverman, a British MP, just goes and it's like, I stand with yeah. What is this? What the whole idea of them bending the knee to Netanyahu, and you need to answer, are you a member of the Israeli government or the British or the American government? And people see that and they don't see nobody asks where does your loyalty lie? This is what me as like a new American, like I'm new to this, and then suddenly I see my representatives just basically kissing ass to the Israeli government, and all like, God bless Israel, 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 Israel. What is this?
When people say to you, why are you picking on Israel? Why are you treating Israel as a special case? My answer is, I'm not treating them as a special case. As you said, I'm not the one who gives speeches referring to it almost as a 51st state. I'm not the one who gives it $3 billion in aid. I'm not the one who gives it vetoes at the UN that no other country gets. If you stop treating it as a special case, I'll stop treating it as a special case. Yeah. It works both ways. There's a lot to discuss here. Luckily, you are coming back. We are going to be doing more of these. And I do want to talk about the American-Israel relationship. We haven't talked about Biden.
Yes.
So that's something we're going to definitely talk about going forward. I know you have very strong views on Joe Biden, as do I, but let's try and discuss that as we go forward. But before we wrap up today's conversation, I do want to ask you, in the roller coaster since October the 7th, how have you dealt with what all of us have dealt with in terms of just the sheer pain, the feeling of despair, some people feeling hopeless? Is that why you do all these interviews? Do the interviews and the debates and the speeches and the podcasts, do they help you get through it? Is it a coping mechanism? How do you stay hopeful? Because that's the question I get asked, and I struggle with it because I do try and stay hopeful, but we all have our dark moments.
In the last few months, I get to know the influence of the Israeli lobbies and the pro-Israeli lobbies inside the United States, inside of Europe, and sometimes I feel that it is hopeless because no matter what we do, we find our speech being muted. We find our reach on social media being reduced, I'm sure that you have noticed. And I said, like, why we're doing this? But on the other hand, speech is everything that we have got left. I left Egypt because I couldn't speak my mind, and then I come to America where I'm promised, like, you can say anything you want. But then you have limitations, and then you're angry. It's like, no, I need to speak. So the only thing that I mean, if you're gonna kill me, at least I'm allowed to scream. So at least I need to kind of have some sort of a verbal a reaction to what is happening. So maybe speech is what is left for us. But I am maybe someone, because I'm being independent. I didn't work with an establishment. You've worked with an established media. When you had this offer to stay silent, you had this kind of you had like a very comfortable option. Like sit down, maybe go here and there, just like stay on social media. But you, in yourself, inside of you, you knew that it is not going to be permanent, because at a certain point, it takes one tweet, and then they can already like kick you out, and all of that, and that offer will not be even on the table. So, in your mind, when you were going through the process, should I stay? Should I start something on my own? Should I just like stay and continue speaking on social media? What was going on your mind when you were like thinking about it?
I'll be honest with you, there was no debate or discussion or thought process. It was, my shows have gone, I gotta leave. And there was no debate for me. It was a no-brainer. The idea that someone like me could just not be vocal in a time of crisis that we live in, it's just not who I am. Anyone who knows me knew that was never going to be a serious option. Like, when I got offered a job by MSNBC in 2020 by Phil Griffin, the former president, I never imagined that I would ever work for MSNBC. And I appreciate MSNBC, the offer they gave me and the platforms they gave me. I was a lefty, British, Muslim, immigrant, working at The Intercept and Al Jazeera English, two very anti-establishment, outside the mainstream media. The idea that I would be on primetime cable hosting shows was an absurdity. I would have laughed if you had told me that. So when I got the offer, it was a shock, but it's not something I ever planned a career around. So for me, it was not painful to be able to say, okay, I'm going to go do something else, because I've been in a lot of places. And MSNBC is one other place that I was at. It was a great experience. I got great audiences, wonderful shows, wonderful guests, and I loved every minute of it. But the moment I don't have the platform, for me, it's about the platform. It's not about the name of the company. It's not about the paycheck. It's about, do I have a platform from which to speak?
So here's my question for you, because you said you've been in the interest at Al Jazeera, anti-establishment, then you find yourself into the establishment. And that comes with a lot of perks and a lot of comfort.
Yes.
And a lot of reach.
Yes.
And now you choose to go be anti-establishment again, but on your own. And I want to ask you, because I'm going to steal your idea. I'm going to make my own anti-establishment platform very soon. I told you about this, so I'm kind of cheating. I'm kind of like I'm taking notes.
You're also part of this one.
Yes, but how did you? Because it reminds me of like me being like comfortable in the establishment of medicine and leaving all of that and jumping into the deep end of media, which I didn't know anything about. But what was the thought process you had that you have to start something on your own? Because that's very unusual.
No, that was a thought process.
That's very unusual.
That was definitely a thought process.
Yeah.
Leaving MSNBC didn't require a thought process. I have to go. What I do next? For sure, I had to think about, what do I want to do next? Because again, I could have taken a comfortable option. I could have got another job. I could have been a freelancer and just made enough money doing different things. To start a company, and friends of mine said, you don't know what you're doing. You're not an entrepreneur. You've never run anything in your life.
Yeah.
I've been an employee my entire life. I've never been. So that was a big moment for me. But again, it's all about what is the best vehicle for me to get across what I believe is the truth, what I believe are the facts. Ultimately, all roads lead back to, what is the platform? What is the best way to get my voice out? As you say, speech. How do I get the speech out there? And this was my belief, that in this moment in time, with mainstream media under assault from all, not just intellectually, ideologically, but financially, you're seeing what's happening to BuzzFeed and Vice and all these groups.
Yes.
This was a time to do something different, try a different model. You know, the phrase, my phrase that I love, I've always loved the phrase, is you build it, they will come. And I'm building this Zeteo. People are coming in their droves because people want an alternative. And just to be clear, anti-establishment, pro-establishment, people can label whatever they want.
I mean,
my thing is I want to be able to say what I want to say.
Independent. Let's say independent.
What I want to say without having to worry about anyone else's diktats, limitations, restrictions.
So here's my question for you. Now everybody is hooked on all of the social media platforms, Facebook, X. And do you think there is a place? And because that's Zeteo here, this is like an incredible achievement and an incredible example for people to follow. Do you think that the Zeteo has a chance to break into the noise? Because everybody now, like Goten, Facebook, we don't look, it's not like 2004, 2005 where we go to websites anymore.
Yes.
We go everything through these gateways. It became a gateway.
Yes. Without gatekeepers.
Exactly.
Which has its pros and cons.
How do you think that your platform, Zeteo, can actually break into the noise, knowing that the gatekeepers might not allow you that kind of exposure?
I think time will tell, Bassem. I think so far what we've managed to achieve in terms of the interest from quote unquote the mainstream folks, the support I've had from quote unquote the mainstream folks, journalists, politicians,
you were
both
talking about
publicly
Chris
and
Cuomo
privately.
about this. I saw that.
I mean, the support from people, I think quality still matters. To short answer to your question, how do we break through quality? I think people still want quality. They still want journalism of a high quality, high production value, facts and figures. Yes, people love the short clips and will share it, but going forward, people still have that desire for something substantive, credible, but not censored, not restricted, not playing some stupid game that everyone knows is a game. And I think that's the reaction there's been just in this early period where we barely launched. And we've already had so much support globally, and now we got people like yourself on board. We're going to get even more support.
Until the day that I would say Jesus is king, and then you have to fire me.
I can assure everyone that Candace Owens will never be a contributor to Zeteo. And on that note, I'm going to wrap up today's conversation. Thank you so much for joining us for the inaugural episode of We're Not Kidding. I'm Mehdi Hasan.
I'm Bassem Youssef.
And this was our first episode. If you like the conversation, please do like it. To go back to Bassem's point about all the kids on social media, like it, comment on it, review it, subscribe. Basically, make some noise so this podcast goes up the charts. Also, subscribe to Zeteo, Zeteo, Zeteo.com, so you can support everything we're doing outside of the podcast, the streaming show, the essays, the newsletters, all of it. Just basically give us some support and some love. Bassem will be back in a month's time because he's got to do, I think, another 500 interviews, own 700 journalists, do 900 stand-up shows. He'll be back in a month's time. But
in our podcast, our
podcast in a month's time. In a couple of weeks, don't tell Bassem, but I'll be doing this show again with another guest host, very big name, not as funny as Bassem.
I feel betrayed already.
Hey, you're a very busy man, and I got to make some podcasts.
Yes.
But tonight, today, this moment, it's our podcast. We're Not Kidding. Bassem, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.